On the 61 rag, took the rag top out of it so that nobody can steal it. It's always a good idea. And take a look at the damage on this thing here. So let's take a look how bad this thing is. It's really bad. This is not the worst of it. So it's got rust up here in the front. Of course, the firewheel is bad. Alright, so the underneath in the front's pretty bad, but you know, this isn't really that bad. Of course, you know, I knew the wheelhouses would be really bad. And those normally, when you do the heater channels, you're going to go ahead and do that area. So usually when the heater channel rusts out, it rusts out through here into the wheelhouse, and you end up putting another piece of metal on. That's what I said in my first video on doing the heater channels, if you watch that one. Of course, there's the rust here in the front, which is pretty bad. A lot of heavy pitted rust here. That's not that bad, really. This wheelhouse, I guess, again, has some funky piece of sheet metal over it that needs to be ripped off, and then we'll see what's left underneath there, which is again probably like the other side or worse. Remember, whenever you get a rust project, you always figure whatever you see is going to be it's going to be at least 10 times as bad as what you see as soon as you start working on it. So of course the heater channels, we already knew we were going to have to do all the way around. The door bottoms look like they're salvageable, which is good. The hinge areas, panhandles obviously are shot, and this is where it starts to get bad. So then you had the back corners, and then underneath the padding up here was completely shot from the outside in. So you can imagine what I'm going to show you next is much worse. So we're trying to figure out where to cut it. That's always tricky. And where to put the supports. That's why I have to kind of figure out where I'm going to cut, because I need to put supports to hold this all together while I'm doing that. So that's the stuff we need to cut off, and it just goes all the way around. And this is actually just dropped. And this here is the bottom of here. And look, if you look here, this whole area is missing. So this corner all the way down, this is a big hole. And we've got here all the way around. Look at this. This is where see, now you've got multiple layers of metal to replace. So fortunately, I do have a donor car for the back half of the car. I have the entire back half, the quarter panel all the way around, except I don't have this part for that car, and you can't really cut this thing right there. You can't really do an adequate splice, you know, through here. That's just not a way to do it. So it's got to be over the lower parts of the metal have to be replaced. So the trick is bracing the whole car together. So that's the next step on your rust repair, is to figure out how to brace the whole car together to hold it in place, line everything up. If you see here, what I've done is I took a come along or a ratcheting tie down, you can use either one, and pulled the car back together to get the door to shut on this side. So now the door actually pretty much lines up and shuts. But I need to check it without the closure on it. So then the next step is to go ahead and check, get it to line up with the closure on it, and then weld a brace in. But the trick is I need to know where to weld it, because this side's completely shot. You see, this is all patch panel all the way across here. This side's the same as the other one. So the shock tower, the wheelhouse, and the body support is totally ruined, and that's what's the problem, is the body's dropping. The back of the body's actually dropped about 1.5 inches or so. And we got the heater channels on this side, again shot, and there's nothing holding that motor on. It's just just moves all over the place. The only thing holding this back together right now is actually the seat brace. So that's kind of holding up the back half of the body and part of the corners. So what do you need to fix this? I mean, this is a bit of work here, guys. This is not for the average guy to just go out and buy this car and try and restore it. That's why I ended up with it, because I think other guys probably looked at it and they went, oh man, there's no way, that's just too hard or whatever. But it's not easy. This is not an easy project. I'm not going to tell you this one's going to be a pinch and did you just, you know, do a couple things. So just so you know, on rust repair, what you got to do is you have to kind of figure out how you're going to do it, because what you need to think about is okay, this car was built. It started with the heater channels. The heater channels was the first thing, and then all this metal stacked on top of the heater channels. So we're doing the opposite. We're replacing the heater channels, and we're building the car from the top down. So you can't just go and go, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just replace this panel, okay, and this one, unless you started with the heater channels and then built the car up, which would be pretty much impossible to do without a jig and everything else that they had in the factories. So so what has to be figured out is to figure out where I'm going to cut, how I'm going to overlap the metal in. So the issues are this, is like we have multiple layers of metal here. So trying to figure out, and what you see on this side of the car, so what's going to end up being the hard thing to figure is you look inside there, you think, oh, well, if I cut here and there, and you look out here, this support extra metal piece here is, if you see here, this is the floor, or the package tray in the back comes up and goes across right here. So now you've got multiple layers of metal to deal with, and you've got to figure out, where is the best place to cut this, and figure out exactly how you're going to, put in grafted pieces. And it might be in multiples. It might be things like you got to replace this section. You might have to cut out the package tray first, part of the package tray, and because I got to replace the edges of the package tray, which are shot, and then cut that out so I can see what I've got to deal with here, and then figure out where I'm going to weld it in at, and how, if I'm going to overlap it for strength or if I'm going to butt weld it for aesthetics. I mean, it just depends on what you're going to do. So when you have a rust project, the hardest part is actually assessing and figuring out what types of things that how you're going to do it, how you're going to approach it, and in this car I'm going to try and keep it original paint, so it's going to be a little bit trickier than if I was just going to cut it up and put all new metal in and just paint the car. So that's what I'm hoping to do. I don't know if I'll be able to or not. It's just because this is pretty bad. So anyway, that's the look at the bug project. Look at that rust in the back. It's completely rusted out there. There's some metal left back here. It's pretty solid. And I do have that area for that. I know I can fix that. And look at this here. We can take kind of late model one on there. That's a joke. You pull that off of there. And I do have this side up to here. If you see, I've got this piece is cut like this or something. The one I have, the apron I have. So I'm going to try and overlap and double up the metal right there, and use the pieces I have. Then I just have to figure out where to splice those in. That's actually pretty easy. The hard part's right here, where the wheelhouse and the body mount supports are. That's actually very difficult to do because there's rust all the way over to here where they bonded over it. So heavy, more than surface rust, it's cancered out. So it's going to be tricky. Alright, so that's the barrel green. I don't know if this is barrel green or mango. I still haven't figured it out. I got the samples from Wolfsburg West, and I went over there and went to their colors, and it looks almost like it's between mango and barrel green from their color charts, and there's nothing else that fits this year car. So, but it is definitely original paint inside. If you look here, you can tell that these have never been painted. The plugs inside here have never been painted, so that tells me it's original paint. Usually they get painted from somebody doing paintwork on one of these. This is actually neat. It's green. It's brown, but it's green now. It looks brown right there, but it looks green right here. It's because all the dirt and stuff in here. So anyway, that's it for the rust stuff. I'll be figuring out the bracing here, and kind of figuring this stuff out. And when I get it all figured out, then I'll show you what I did, and then we'll be doing some rust repair. So stay tuned and make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you next video.